Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and a very warm welcome once again to tonight's live show. So when people start coming in, we'll see if there's actually a better sound reflection. Way better sound, yes! I switched off my laptop, I started again, and I'm back. Hashtag me, wait really. Right, so Grace Randolph has reported that Zachary Levi, after Shazam Fury of the Gods, won't be getting another contract to play the DC character, and that Saha Calle will not be Supergirl going forward. John Haymick, good evening, John. Now, in terms of Saha Calle, James and Pete have said that Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is way off, and they haven't made their mind up who's going to play her. But I can confirm tonight that Saha Calle will not be the DC Universe's Supergirl, and she's been cut out of the new timeline. She's been cut out of the end of the Flash movie. Apparently, Gal Gadot's been cut of the end of the Flash movie, as well as has Henry Cavill. If you're not in the new timeline at the end of that movie, you won't be involved going forward. Hashling me, yo Mike, yo hashling me. The legend CJ, basically everything from the old regime is outright. Let me try and explain it to you so you understand, right? So he said there's a possibility for Zachary Levi's Shazam. I know what I'm reporting here. That's from Grace Randolph, but Zachary Levi's Shazam, Ezra Miller's The Flash, Jason Momoa's Aquaman have the possibility of coming over to DC Universe. But here's what I think. I think that they're just going to phase them out slowly because they've got films out this year. You don't have to deal with that issue straight away. You can see what he's announced. So there's no Aquaman project in phase 1. It doesn't look like it. Let's see what happens in chapter 2. Or, The Flash, because he's just had a movie, right? So I think sooner rather than later, they will be phased out and they will kind of recast these roles. They're not, look, they've got movies out this year, so they're not going to say anything derogative about them while they've got movies coming out. Scott Edwards, what's up? Good evening. The legend CJ, did you see that Fire James Gunn is trending again due to the Snyder fans? Doesn't matter. They're not going to fire James Gunn. They're wasting their oxygen. Let them waste their oxygen. Let people keep on laughing at them. The one I support is sell Snyderverse to Netflix. The other one is just full of toxic dude bros. Hashmi, so the only left is Momoa and Ezra from OG DCU. Well, we don't know. We don't know. I don't think Ezra Miller will be the Flash going forward. Bobcat, hey Mickey, good evening, Bobcat. The author of my logo and the author of my beautiful trailer. So always grateful to you for that. Scott Edwards, I think everyone is staying except Cavill and Affleck. I don't agree with that. John, what do you think is going to happen with Harley Quinn? That is a very good question because there's been no mention of his beloved Harley Quinn. So very, very interesting. I actually think that maybe Margot's done as Harley Quinn in the DC universe, or just fleeting appearances, maybe. She's very busy at the moment. She did warn us after the Suicide Squad that she thought it was time to give Harley a bit of a break. I think that's something that maybe the studio at the time encouraged as well. The legend CJ, there's no way Ezra is staying. Imagine the backlash. The backlash will be there, but I just feel that even if there wasn't a backlash, he could be looking at that casting and saying, there's better people out there, younger people out there, more vibrant people out there to play the Flash. He's not really the Flash. I think he's brilliant in the Flash movie, but yeah. Sean Franklin, hi, good evening. Scott Edwards, Flash crossover starts next week. Good. So, the other thing I put up there, because as I was sharing this on Twitter, this live show on Twitter, I saw a post by James Gunn showing 4 comic book titles, including All-Star Superman, making it clear that these comic books, even though he's teased them, are just an influence and they're not a direct adaptation. Now, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is absolutely a direct adaptation. James Peter and Tom King will be working together to adapt that. But that's far off. I don't think Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comes out in 2025, the same year as Superman Legacy, for example. Hashtag me. So do you think Peacemaker still continue in DCU after the announcement regarding Amanda Waller show with Peacemaker in it? I think we may see Peacemaker in the Amanda Waller show. Maybe. We're definitely going to see people from his show. Whether or not James Gunn's Suicide Squad universe, as it was, continues in the new universe. He said he's got no time to do a second series of Peacemaker. That's interesting. So that may not continue. And that's another thing of having to wait and see. Not quite sure about that yet. But I definitely don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he continues his Suicide Squad franchise. Scott Edwards, do you think Black Manta will die in Aquaman? I always forget the title. What is it? Aquaman 2. Let's just call it Aquaman 2. Don't know. I don't know. But, Bobcat, I heard the synopsis for the Thunderbolts. It sounds a lot like 2016 Suicide Squad. I just don't know why they'd want to do that story again. Well, basically, Thunderbolts is their version of not the 2016 movie, but the Suicide Squad itself. So what you've read is just a synopsis for their version of the Suicide Squad. But I don't think you can take the leap and say, well, it's exactly like the 2016 movie. Personally, I quite enjoyed the 2016 movie. Bobcat, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. That's right, thank you. Scott Edwards, why do people hate the Arrowverse? Well, listen, some people hate the Snyderverse. Some people hate the Arrowverse. Not everyone can like the same things, Scott, I'm afraid. The Arrowverse for me was fantastic in the first 4 years. First 2 years of Arrow, first 2 years of The Flash. Then it became something else for a different type of audience, for I suppose, a Tumblr audience, if you like. And it's not for everyone, my friend. I'm glad you enjoy it, but it's not for everyone. You can't expect everyone to like what you like. Hashtag me, yeah, he seems pretty busy with Superman Legacy script. That's why no time for Peacemaker 2. That's true, but it doesn't mean we'll ever get a Peacemaker 2. Who knows? Sean Franklin, you think James Gunn, he used Black Lightning, Green Arrow, Red Tornado, Justice Society, Justice League Dark in DCU? Justice League Dark, Constantine, definitely. I think Constantine, because of Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing has a big connection with Constantine. I expect James and Peter to cast their own Constantine. Now, I think Matt Ryan is a perfect Constantine, and I would like to see him play the character, but we will see. Bubka, well, the synopsis is that they assemble the team. That's the Suicide Squad in the comics, right? Yeah. One member goes rogue and they've got to step them, and it's Black Ops stuff. The rogue team member is constructing a Sky team. I mean, come on. No, I just think that's a description of the Suicide Squad. I think that's a blanket. And obviously, Bobcat, I don't really want to debate this too deeply because I haven't seen the film. I don't know what the film's about. And I don't think you can really gauge that as a copy of Suicide Squad 2016. But of course, if you want to have that opinion, you're free to do so. The Legend CJ, do you think they will announce the cast of new DCEU at Comic-Con? So that's about July or August, right? So you're talking about, what, 5 or 6 months from now? Well, he said he doesn't do any casting until he's finished the scripts. So maybe, but I think it may be too soon even then. But he, for example, may announce a Batman casting. I assume maybe he may have an idea for Batman. Maybe not Superman yet. We will see. John, the Arrowverse had the best version of Deathstroke. Oh, right. Yes, the Arrowverse did have a very good version of Deathstroke. We barely saw the DCEU's version, so we can't really compare them. But that was a very good version. I forgot who Deathstroke was from it. You're right. It was a very good version. First 2 seasons were great in Arrow. First 2 seasons of The Flash were great. Supergirl kind of started okay, then went down a tangent that I couldn't follow on. And then, it all just went to pot for me personally, not for me. But yeah, just because they had a good version of Deathstroke, it doesn't mean it was, it was a great franchise throughout the board. I don't even think Gunn is a big fan of it. Hashling me, how old do you think Batman DCEU if he's slightly older than Supes? Well, Supes is going to be about 25, apparently. I think then you'd look at Batman, maybe 30. Maybe, yeah, I think Batman would be 30 and Superman would be around 25. Scott Edwards, all the crossovers were fantastic, though. Look, I think if you like the crossovers and stuff, that's good. For me, the first 4 seasons of Arrowverse were great. I think the first crossover, Arrow versus The Flash, was fantastic. Ultimately, we spent a lot of the crossovers telling us how great Supergirl was or how great Batwoman was over the male characters. As I say, Scott, not really for me. But as I say, the early days of Arrowverse was beautiful. And it's a shame that identity politics got in the way, as it does in entertainment today. Hashling me. What do you think of the Titans Deathstroke? Was it good? I thought it was okay. Bobcat, Titans are interesting. The message is held for review. The Legend CJ, he must say Batman is at least 32 if he had Damian with Thalia at age 22. Maybe you're right, 30, 32, who knows? Around that age anyway. But yeah, Scott Edwards, Black Manta will be the main villain in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Well, thank you for that statement, Scott. I respect your opinion if that's what you think. I'm not going to tell you who the main villain in that film is. John, I did enjoy the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was okay. The Tom Welling Clark Kent cameo was despicable. Making him a house husband that's retired from being Superman was disgusting. As a Smallville fan, it disgusted me. And Michael Rosenbaum was right not to be involved in it. And that's my opinion on that. Bobcat, they should cast you as Lex Luthor, Mickey. Wouldn't that be good? The Legend CJ, can't believe they made him retire his powers. It was disgusting. And this is why I'm so happy that Gunn and Safran have booted Greg Berlanti, the orchestrator of Arrowverse, out of DC. Deservedly so. Scott Edwards, why do people hate Ahsoka Tano as a character? People don't hate Ahsoka. I've never heard anyone hate on Ahsoka, Scott. I don't know where you're hanging out, mate. MSGT, much better sound. Thank you, MSGT. Yeah, it does that sometimes. A very cheap HD camera, but that's what I've got. I switched the laptop off and it's all right now. The Legend CJ, can't believe CW is still going to continue Gotham Knights. What a joke of a show. Yeah, not even James Gunn could be bothered to mention Gotham Knights. Did you notice that? It's going to be a one-season wonder. No one's going to watch it. It's going to be shit, and we know that. And I don't even know what the motivation of doing it is. Scott Edwards, right now, let's get excited for Shazam 2. I'm excited for everything DC, but really my go-to excitement right now is for the Flash movie, because that's going to ignite where we're going with James Gunn and Peter Safran at the end of that movie. So that's the most exciting thing for me. I'm excited for Shazam Fury of the Gods, but I'm not overly, it's not the biggest thing for me in DC, not with all these great titles coming. The future is bright. We just need to get through these movies to get to James and Peter's future. That's how I'm seeing things. Bobcat, Gotham Knights looks horrific. They did Stephanie Brown dirty. Well, what do you expect from Greg Berlanti? The Legend CJ, so is Blue Beetle confirmed to be a part of Gunn's DCU, so that will be the first movie in this new universe? Right. These are things that are interesting. He's calling everything DCU, even the films coming out this year. They're not really DCU, they're DCEU. But they're trying to sell them as much as they can. Now, he said he's got big plans for Blue Beetle. I'm going to make the assumption, but this is the thing. His stuff really starts, as he said, with Superman Legacy. That's when the new franchise truly happens. So I don't know how it works from going to, the Flash movie, which takes us to this new DCU. And if they've been able to change Blue Beetle so we can see that, and if they do it with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, there would have had to have been some changes with that film as well. I assume if they were able to change the ending of the Flash movie, they've done the same thing in the same context with the other movies. Scott Edwards, well, we now No, Black Flash is the main villain for the Flash film now due to leaks. Well, you can't always believe leaks. MSGT, my excitement for the remainder of the DCU's Flash and Aquaman 2. I'm excited for all of them. I think they're all going to be great. John, what did you think of the Batman reveal in the Gotham TV series? Oh, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. He seemed a bit short. I don't know. There was just something I didn't. First of all, my friend was axed out of that finale as Selena Kyle. So I'm never, ever, ever going to forgive them for that. Scott Edwards, the king of Necris. Don't know what you're talking about. Hashling, me. In your opinion, who's going to be the villain for Superman Legacy? I don't know who the villain's going to be, but considering the chapter 1 is Gods and Monsters, maybe Superman fights a monster, but maybe the end game of the movie is a god. Maybe one of the gods we haven't seen before. It's going to be interesting. And we do know, I can guarantee you that Jason Momoa's Lobo will be in that film because I think he is playing Lobo. That's basically blatantly been out there, isn't it? Scott Edwards, Ashoka is twice the character Ray is. Scott Edwards, Metallo. Metallo's one I'd love to see because I've wanted to see a domestic villain, an ordinary person. And he's not, someone who's not necessarily like all bad. So I'd like to see that. And I had a great idea for Metallo in a script that I wrote. But yeah, which we've spoken about on this channel before. So in terms of comic book adaptations, just because he's been teasing All-Star Superman, it doesn't mean he's adapting that for Superman Legacy. That was something I was worried about and frightened about because Superman dies at the end of All-Star Superman. He's clarified that kind of thing is an inspiration rather than an adaptation. But Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is a total adaptation. I want to see more comics being adapted like they're doing with Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, instead of Zach stuffing The Dark Knight Returns and the death of Superman in BVS, which is such a bad idea. You either adapt something properly or you don't do it. But basically, I don't mind them being inspirations, but to stuff 2 inspirational comics into one movie, nah. Scott Edwards, I'm going to speculating on the Lost Kingdom till Christmas. That's okay, but I'm not going to tell you anything. This is Movies TV Man. Smash the like button. This is our live chat. Is Zachary, Levi and Sasha Calle out as Shazam and Supergirl? According to Grace Randolph, she seems to have a bit of insight at the moment. I'm not fussed if Sasha Calle is Supergirl or not, to be honest with you. Actually, probably for the best that she's... Look, James Gunn has come in. He wants his own people. He's got his own vision. That's right. That's right. And that's the way it should be. Scott Edwards, what about after the first trailer for Lost Kingdom drops? Can we talk more then? We can talk, but I'm not going to tell you anything apart from what's in the trailer. We can discuss what's in the trailer. There's not going to be any spoilers on this channel. Hashling, me, besides Superman Legacy, what other projects are you excited the most? Me, Booster Gold. I think that the Batman, the Brave and the Bold movie is very exciting. I'm very excited about the Swamp Thing horror movie. James Mangold, a wonderful director, in talks to write and direct that film. Not directly connected with the DCU, but it will have a semblance of that story that they're doing. So I'm excited about that. The Lanterns TV series, I'm very excited for that as well. In all honesty, I'm excited for most of them. Obviously, high and low excitements. I'm more excited for like Superman Legacy, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, The Brave and the Bold, the Swamp Thing movie than I am Waller. But I do think that Waller will be a very exciting streaming show. The animated series that's going to transfer into live action as well. Excited about that. I'm really excited about what he's doing because the titles that he's told us about are exciting. Now, people, Nerdrotic has just done a video saying that it's a snooze fest, that it's underwhelming. But I want you to tell me why you think it's underwhelming. And, of course, Nerdrotic can be very politically biased, unfortunately. Did they ever do the Death of Superman storyline in Smallville? Well, they tried, kind of. They never really killed Clark. So we had Doomsday, who was Davis Bloom. Davis Bloom would turn into Doomsday, basically like Banner turns into the Hulk. And he came from Krypton, and he was Zod's and Fiora's son. So they did Doomsday, but he never killed Superman. But Clark did say at the end of the series, Clark Kent is dead, metaphorically, but they never actually killed him. Scott Edwards, mind summer show colleagues. I don't know any. Ronnie Dodge, do I mind them? Well, I don't know. Does anyone else mind summer show colleagues? Ronnie Dodge, did you see James is using all the Star Superman as an inspiration for Superman? Well, I've just been talking about that, Ronnie, because I thought he was teasing adapting that, and I was worried considering Superman dies at the end of that. But I'm really happy that James has clarified that it's just an inspiration, and I'm all right with that, like imagery, like tonally, conceptually. So I'm happy about that, and I did see that, Ronnie, and I'm very happy that he elaborated on that, because I have been a bit concerned. I don't want my hero to die. MSGT, DCU excitement, Superman Brave and the Bold, Lantern, Swamp Thing, and those unknown fresh titles I've never heard about. Yes, the unknown stuff, the way he explained them sound very, very exciting. Now, someone had a great theory over on Twitter that that team that protect, are basically ruling Earth with an iron fist is pretty much a Kingdom Come story. And what this theory said, that we start off with Kingdom Come and then the heroes and the gods arrive. I think that would be a great and exciting way of doing it. Ronnie Dodge, I was reading an article. James confirmed that Superman in Legacy Club will be 25. Yeah. 25, I think, is about good. 25. He's normally around 25, 30. He's been at it since he's 23, obviously. Don't forget, he's already there for 2 years because there's no origin story here. I'm sure they will flash back to Kryptonian things. Hopefully there'll be a Fortress of Solitude. For me, what James has announced is really exciting. But, of course, they're just titles. We have to see how they're executed, how they're casted. Let me quote you some of the things that James and Peter said on the announcement, because I think this is very interesting. If we want to talk about, let's say, identity politics and wokeness, a lot of things that were said were very interesting and hopeful, and very hopeful for the future of DC for me. Peter Safran, Superman is truth, justice, and the American way. He said that Batgirl was unwatchable. And James Gunn said story is the most important thing. Now, normally in these little announcements, they talk about representation, they talk about inclusion. Clearly, Zaslav has got his foot on their throats to make sure that doesn't happen. I think we all know why Batgirl was canned. And it wasn't because it was unreleasable. It may have been unreleasable, but they could have spent money to make it releasable. We know. And it's because of Leslie Grace. That's why it was. I don't think Zaslav liked the cultural swap. And I think that's why Batgirl was canned. Let me know what you think about that. Scott Edwards, apparently Ashoka will see several different timelines in the world between worlds. Yeah, that's a rumor from people who I think want kind of the sequel trilogy deleted. Ronnie George, I got the DC Infinite app. I can read all DC comics. I pay about £7 a month. Oh, wow. John, are you going to watch the new Wonka movie when it comes out? I either will go and see it or wait till it comes out on home release, but I am interested in it for sure. Ronnie Dodge, James has said he has been speaking to the Batgirl directors as well to come back for another project. He did say that a while back. So, yeah, I think obviously, look, Peter has said they're going to use Batgirl eventually, but it won't be Leslie Grace. It will be a comic book accurate casting. I believe this is where Zaslav stands. I think this is why that film was actually cancelled, because of the casting. And if you've read some of the information on that film, there was, I think, was there a transgender character in there or something? Now, these could be the reasons that it was actually cancelled. Now, I'm not going to give an opinion on that. I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I think these could have been some of the reasons it was canned. Scott Edwards, and we might get to see Ashoka fight Anakin on Mustafar instead of Obi-Wan. Kind of what if scenario? Oh, God. Ronnie George, did you see Tanner Buchan from Cobra Kai is interested in being a part of Brave and the Bold? Well, that's good, but he can be interested, but that doesn't really mean anything. They're asked the question, would you be interested? He's an actor, wants to work. He says, yeah, it doesn't really mean it's going to happen. We'll see, though. Reno Jack, hello, Nick. Hope you're well, sir. Good evening, Reno Jack, and I hope you're well as well. Welcome to the live chat. There are your headlines tonight. I'm sure there's more things, more talking points. It's a very big week for DC fans. We've got some very exciting announcements, and no matter what some propaganda merchants say, you can trend fire James Gunn as much as you want. It doesn't really matter. He hasn't actually done anything to be fired about while he's been in this job. That's how you get fired. He ain't getting fired. He's leading Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery to be making money, to success, right? Because the other people and the other bloke that they support didn't get the studio the success they wanted, right? He was making fan fiction, very good fan fiction, stunningly looking fan fiction, but that's not what entertainment's about. The studio are giving you money because they want that money returned to them in double or treble. 850 million for a Batman and a Superman movie is simply not good enough. And if you think that's good enough and that's competitive, you're deluding yourself. This is why we are where we are now. Ronnie Dodge, did you see Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow was sold out very quickly on Amazon after the announcement? Yeah, originally when this comic was released, it didn't do too well, interestingly enough. But now, since James Gunn made the announcement, I think people are buying it because they want to know what kind of story it is. So it'll be interesting what the public think of the actual story. So it's good that it's sold out, but I'm more interested in what people made of the actual graphic novel. I haven't read it yet. I will read it because obviously it's interesting. I think that's the one that they're proper straight adapting. It'll be interesting what happens with that. Ronnie Dodge, I've started reading it. What do you think, Ronnie? What do you think? Is it any good? I mean, I've heard people talk about it. I mean, Bobcat was on here telling me about it yesterday. Thank you for that, Bobcat. But yeah, I just felt, what I know of it, it sounds interesting. So, but as I say, the stuff that he's announced so far to me is awesome. I don't see how possibly that's underwhelming. Ronnie George, so far I think it's really good. Oh, cool. But you know, and if you were underwhelmed by that announcement, what did you want from that announcement? That's the thing as well, isn't it? I mean, what did you actually want? I mean, I keep on hearing people wanting Justice League, but why do you want Justice League so soon? Why do you want them to rush out a Justice League movie? They're fleshing out. And if they did rush to Justice League, you people would start saying, why are they rushing to Justice League so soon? So whatever he does, some of you, Mr. and Mrs. and whatever you identify as negatives, would find something to click at it. This is not an underwhelming slate so far. In fact, it's an overwhelming slate so far. I mean, I don't see how you could be a nerd or a comic book fan like Mr. Nerdrodic saying that it's a yawn when they've actually announced a horror movie, a Swamp Thing horror movie. How is that underwhelming? How is a Batman and Superman movie underwhelming? How is a Lanterns TV show underwhelming? You know, I don't get it. Rain Dodge, I wonder what James' Inspiration Comics is for Lanterns. Yeah, that would be an interesting one. The description sounds kind of original rather than being inspired by comics. Scott Edwards, Aquaman and Black Manta is one of the most underrated comic book rivalries. Interesting. MSGT, I found that people who have decided to hate what Gunn presented are contradictory fans. They are saying all kinds of nonsense. Well, that's what they do because they're biased, because they're Snyder fans. And whatever James was going to announce, they were going to say it's shit because these people shouldn't be listened to. Because when you're governed by your own bias, then your opinion don't mean squat. If you actually believe that's underwhelming, you're not a Superman fan, you're not a Batman fan, you're not a Swamp Thing fan, right? You're not a Green Lantern fan. So what the fuck are you doing calling yourself a DC fan? If you're not excited for Superman, you're not excited for Batman, you're not excited for Swamp Thing, what the fuck are you here for? Why are you part of this community? It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. Scott Edwards, do you consider Orm or Manta more Arthur's arch enemy? Nemesis. Well, Orm's a complicated one because they're enemies, but they're not enemies. And and with Black Manta as well, it kind of decides where the weather swings if they're proper enemies. So I think they're kind of both more adversaries rather than enemies. Ronnie Dodge, how is a Swamp Thing movie boring that is looking likely will be directed by James Mangold? I don't know. People just like to say things. Ronnie Dodge, after the announcement, they need to take the hint. The Snyderverse is dead. Scott Edwards, will Thrawn become Ashoka's arch nemesis? I would assume that. MSGT example, some Snyderverse fans who argued for years that DC should not copy the MCU are now demanding core character movies until they assemble to Justice League. So phase 1, MCU. Yeah. Look, they can love Zack Snyder. I love Zack Snyder. I love the Snyderverse. But I understand where we are now, that Zack Snyder's universe will not work in a central universe. It could work in an Elseworld. It could work over on Netflix. I support that campaign. But the Fire James Gunn situation is a waste of oxygen because it's simply not going to happen. Because I repeat, he hasn't done anything to be fired about. The historical tweets have happened. He's apologized for those tweets. He's held his hands up. It's over. No matter what films he's done in the past that you're offended by, it doesn't matter what he said. Because everyone says shit. Everyone does shit. It's over. Hollywood is full of much worse people than James Gunn. It's over. He's the co-head of DCU. He's the big enchilada, right? Your man, Zack Snyder, didn't do the business. He made 3 really good films for himself. Fan fiction. That was great. And I loved it, but he wasn't making it for the studio. He wasn't helping the studio's bottom line. And that nobody gets to make 100% free, a creative integrity piece. He did. He just waded in there and said, I'm going to do what the fuck I want. But at some cost to the DCIP. Reno Joke, I do hope Superman is a more timeless take and not set directly in modern times with overuse of social media. Yeah, I would agree with that. We'll see about that. Ronnie Dodge, I feel the DCU is more planned out in advance than the MCU. Well, I don't know about that. I'm not sure. I mean, Feige is very, methodical with his planning. But definitely the DCU is more planned out than the DCEU. But then me making a decision within 5 seconds would be more planned out than the DCEU. Ronnie Dodge, I'll admit, Grace Randolph blocked me because I called her ball out. What did you do, Ronnie? She blocked me ages ago when she was slandering David Ayer's Suicide Squad. I don't care. I mean, it's a shame because she is connected. I do like her YouTube channel, but I'm not going to cry about it. And if she wants to unblock me, that's great. I don't hate Grace Randolph. And she's like Marmite. Sometimes I like her, sometimes I don't. But yeah, I don't think our conversation justified her blocking me, but that's her free thing to do. It's up to her. MSGT, the DCU is being planned out because for the first time, it is started as a shared universe and the success of the MCU model helps legitimize a wider plan. MOS was not supposed to start anything. Right, let me explain to you. You keep on saying this, MSGT, about MOS. Let me explain to you about MOS, right? This is what they were saying at the time. If Man of Steel was successful, it would launch into a shared universe. The motivation was for Man of Steel. That's why we got the Luthor truck. That's why we got the Wayne. That's why we had the Wayne satellite. So they always planned on launching an extended universe, maybe not a shared universe, but some kind of franchise from it. Ronnie John, basically, it legitimately failed because they did the wrong things, MSGT. Ronnie Dodge, I said she has an agenda against James Gunn. Ooh, what was she saying? What made you say that to her? Waz007. Hi, Mick. Good evening to you, Waz. This is Movies TV Mads. You have found the right place. If you are a Movies TV Mads subscriber, you're all going to be very well informed. The #1 YouTube channel for DC content and entertainment content, news and views. This may not be a very popular channel, a very famous channel, but this is where you are informed. When they delayed last year's movies, I told you it was more about the delays about COVID and VFX. I was right. I told you that the DCU was a rebranding of the DCEU. I was right. I told you that James and Peter would do exactly what Walter was doing with using the Flash movie as part of a multiverse strategy. That's exactly what's happening. The new DCU will be bred from the Flash movie. So this is the place to be with genuine opinion. I'm not going to watch what I say just in case you get upset and unsubscribe. I'm going to speak my truth. I'm going to tell you the news with views. And that's what you're going to get here. That's what you're going to get here. Proper opinion, honesty, and that's it. Ronnie Dodge, she said, I don't think James Gunn's saved DC. And I said, you dislike James because he called your ball out. Oh, right. Yeah, I don't. Again, she's a very fragile creature. So it doesn't take much for her to block you. It's a shame. That's her opinion if she doesn't. Look, she's always trying, like she drove away the Snyder fans and she started attacking them for no reason. Now she's trying to get them back again because she's not very relevant anymore because she doesn't have as much inside knowledge. She's just trying to play the game. Yosef Al-Jazwan, James Mangold is in talks to do Swamp Thing. I know. Good, isn't it? Ronnie Dodge. Oh, well, I'm not going to cry about it. But Grace Randolph really isn't an authority in what's going to be successful on anyone. But that's her view, and she's entitled to it. Ronnie Dodge, crazy day for a United fan. Hey, Mick. Yes. I don't think he'll ever play for Manchester United again. And I think that's really the end of that one. Film Goblin. So are you a bit disappointed this isn't a full reboot? It is to me, right. Now, when he started saying we're going to change the things that need changing and keep the things that don't, and that kind of confirmed to me that it wasn't a full reboot. At the time, I was very passive-aggressively triggered by that. I always wanted a full reboot. I thought that was the thing that we needed to. But now I'm not as angry because I understand, because I do my research and I talk to people. Because of the political situation at Warner Brothers Discovery, it's not possible for him to totally distance himself from the DCEU completely. And that's why it's just a partial relaunch or reboot. If it was up to him, he would cut ties with the same thing, and Peter. But they can't because of contracts and certain situations. But it will be as much of a reboot. It's a new timeline, Film Goblin. You know, a new timeline will be bred out of the Flash movie, as Walter Hamada was going to do, but it's a different timeline. It's a DCU, and it involves the Gods and Monsters, Chapter 1, and whatever they're planning for Chapter 2. There will be big changes, and you'll see that at the end of the Flash movie. They've cut the ending that Hamada did, all of that stuff. No Keaton in the new timeline, no Sasha Calle, Supergirl. It looks like Wonder Woman and Henry Cavill's Superman have also been cut from the ending of that film. So there's going to be big changes. It's no longer going to be the DC Extended Universe you knew. A new timeline, a dramatically different timeline and universe will be bred out with a brand new Superman and a brand new Batman. So in fact, I'm not as triggered as I once was about this, and I think it can work. And it's kind of cool that the DCEU will kind of be still canonical, and we can kind of respect and remember the history that started this whole thing off. Because not everything about the DCEU is bad. Film, where are we? Bat Super, they should keep Sasha Calle, but then they can replace Levi. I'm not too fussed about Sasha Calle being replaced because she doesn't really look like a true blue Supergirl, but let's see. Yeah, it doesn't mean I want her out, but I wouldn't be upset because they want their own people, don't they? Ronnie Dodge. Also, Varane retiring from the France team is good for us. It's outstanding for us. Waz 007, should DCU start 2013 Man of Steel 2014 Wonder Woman, Alexandra Daddario as Wonder Woman, and The Flash, Ryan Gosling as The Flash 2015, Man of Steel 2 2016, Batman solo film Goblin. But aren't you a bit confused how this is going to work? I am not confused at all, Film Goblin, because in fact I've just been talking about it and explaining it. But I'll explain it to you again, right? In the Flash movie, Barry will go and save his mother. He will create Flashpoint. He will then fix Flashpoint. He thinks he's returned to the original timeline, but in fact, it's a new timeline and things have dramatically changed. Some things will stay the same and some things will change. And from that new timeline, you'll have a new Batman, a new Superman, maybe the same Wonder Woman, maybe not. Maybe Shazam will be canon, maybe he won't. It's basically Back to the Future too. That's what we're talking about here. When you see the Flash movie, it won't be confusing. Ronnie Dodge, I wanted a remake, but I think James worked the way around it without making it complicated. Ronnie Dodge, I saw some people moan that Batman will be older than Superman. I've always think that Batman was slightly older than Superman anyway, so I don't know what they're talking about. What's 007? 2016 Green Lantern, 2017 Batman versus Superman, and Aquaman 2018 Justice League. Bat Super, maybe G. Bat Super, maybe they can cast Sasha Calle as a different character. Maybe, but look, James wants his own people. Ultimately, the original cast members or the things that Hamada was doing or even Snyder were doing will just get slowly phased out. And they will introduce the characters they want to introduce. And James and Peter will do their own thing. But it's going to take time to completely move away from what Zach, Johns, Berg, and Hamada did. But they will phase all of that out eventually. And I agree with that. Yusuf Ajuwan, a reset. So it is a reset. It is a reset of sorts. But some things will stay the same, some things won't. So we've got to make the assumption that his Suicide Squad universe, those people will stay, some will, some won't. I don't know how that's going to work out. We'll see. But the more we get on, the more he's explaining, the more he's clarifying. He's starting to see that people are confused and he's starting to explain. He didn't start, when he started this job, he wasn't explaining himself properly because he wanted to do teases, which was great and fun and people were being receptive because he keeps on calling things the DCU, even the stuff from the old DCEU. But, the DCU is the new timeline as far as I'm concerned. And that's going to be born out of the Flash movie. I think it's as simple as that. MSGT fans need to relax. Look at the DCU as a new start and stop worrying about who is who and what makes what. The man has to present a single show yet. MSGT, Comic-Con will reveal a lot. Yeah, Comic-Con will be interesting. Let's see what they do in Comic-Con. It'll be interesting. I don't know how much they can reveal by that time because I don't know how further down the development kind of avenue they will be on. So they may not be as far ahead as they need to be to reveal as much as people keep on predicting. There'll be something. I think Comic-Con really will be about this year's movies more than anything. Bat Super, do you think the two projects Gunn is discussing with Affleck are among the ones already mentioned or they have not announced yet? I think there's a big possibility that Ben Affleck is going to direct the Batman movie. I think he won't write it, but I think that Ben Affleck could direct Batman just to appease him, what happened to him, and that would be cool. And maybe Ben can even play a character within the movie. So don't be surprised if Ben Affleck directs The Brave and the Bold. Ronnie Dodge, who would you cast as Lois? I want to see fresh actors, but we've discussed Karen Gillan before because of the red hair, and I think she's a great actor. She would be interesting. I think there's lots of young actors you could choose. It depends how old Superman's going to be as well. But yeah, I think Karen can play the determined, stubborn young woman. That would be interesting. But I think, really, like I say all the time, I like to see fresh actors given opportunities, and it will be great. Scott Edwards, I don't think Cyborg will be involved in this JL. Well, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's unlikely that Ray Fisher gets to come in as Cyborg. But characters like Cyborg can be rested for a little while. There's no urgency to get them involved. MSGG, yeah, I expect a couple more titles maybe, but a lot more clarification on what he has already presented. Doesn't want to give away things, but fans seem petrified about the connectivity angle. Well, I think it's pretty obvious how everything connects. In terms, people are triggered about how the DCEU and DC Universe connects. It's kind of interesting how people see it, but the most important thing is the new timeline. The new universe is connected, and that's exactly what it's going to be. Ronnie Dodge, what I love is, James, no movie won't be in production until the script is 100%. Absolutely how it should be done. Yusuf Aljawan, Cyborg only part of the new 52. Film Goblin, I would like to see Ezra Miller come back though, because I believe in second chances. I don't think he's coming back. I think you've got more chance of me playing The Flash, me playing Superman and Batman all at once, than Ezra Miller playing The Flash again. But they're being non-committal because his film's coming out. But yeah, I mean, unless it's, unless the reception team is so good, you never know. But I don't see it. I think they're bringing in their own people. Yufaz Ajawan, he is a teen titan. Film Goblin, Ezra Miller is just human like the rest of us, and we make mistakes. We do make mistakes. He committed crimes. Now, it's not for me to forgive Ezra Miller for those crimes. They committed crimes with victims. It's up to the victims to decide whether they should be forgiven. Very wealthy young person, more wealthy than you and me. So they are an actor. They have a responsibility to conduct themselves in ways. I'm not saying I'm saying no forgiveness. I'm saying it's just an opportunity for James Gunn to basically recast him, because there are better younger actors out there to play this character. Scott Edwards, what do you think has happened to Ezra Bridger in all this time? He's been gone with Thrawn. Ooh. Is he going to go to the dark side? Ronnie Dodge, Cyborg is probably going to be in Teen Titans as he's a Titans character. Yeah, I mean, will they do a Teen Titans? It'll be interesting. Film Goblin, Robert Downey Jr. got a second chance. So can Ezra. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. went to prison for taking drugs, selling drugs, whatever it was, right? Yeah, he got a second chance. Are we really comparing a man who played Charlie Chaplin, a great young actor, to Ezra Miller, who was he was basically unapologetic for 2 years about what he was doing? He didn't even want to say sorry, and they didn't want to say sorry until they were threatened by Adby and DeLuca that their movie would be shelved, and that's the only reason they apologized. So there is no comparison. Robert made a mistake and he regretted it as soon as he did it. There's a big difference. Scott Edwards, I have discovered the identity of the hidden villain. Ooh. Ronnie Dodge, I feel Jason will stay as Arthur. I'm not sure. I think these are situations I'm not sure about. I think can go either way. Personally, I think he's going to phase them all out. Whether they get other roles or not, I think they're all going to be phased out. MSGT, Miller is a massive liability for the studio and franchise. They are done. Ronnie Dodd, I just realised we will have a new Mira, I hope. Well, that's something else we don't know about. These are the changes. This is why we're jumping into a new timeline. It helps them do this. They want to move away from what went before. It's not going to happen straight away. They will phase these things out slowly when they have to do it. They don't have to phase out anything right now in terms of the 4 leads of this year's movies, because the movies are coming out this year, so they don't have to be involved anytime soon. Maybe they'll cameo, maybe they won't. We'll wait and see. Film Goblin, I can see James Gunn being sympathetic with Ezra, since James knows what it feels like to be under heat by the public. James Gunn and Peter Safran have their names on the door, so they don't want any liabilities that can get them into trouble. But it's about more than that. And I've explained it to you before, Film Goblin. Quite happy to explain it to you again. It's quite simple. These are not James and Peter's people. They will cast the people they want to cast. And they will want a new identity for their brand new universe. And that's why I think Ezra Miller is done as the Flash. But we'll see. Pacific, do you think Ezra is more likely to stay if the Flash makes over $1 billion? I mean, look, if it makes a lot of money, they have a better chance of staying. We'll see. Scott Edwards, James Wan posted a picture of Clapperboard that said Necros on it. So it's not a spoiler. Ronnie Judge, I can't wait to see what Metropolis will look like. Oh, yeah, hopefully stunning. Hopefully not just New York City. Ronnie Judge, I can't wait to see. And I read that. Reno Jack, lol, Robert Downey Jr. has hits outside of the superhero genre. He's a star. Ezra is nothing without the Flash. Yeah. Look, just go and see him as Charlie Chaplin. That's all I need to say. Charlie Chaplin. Ronnie Dodge, deadline confirmed last night. We are getting a Flash trailer next week. Yes, Super Bowl is where it's going to be released. So, yeah, and next week is Sunday. So, yes, that's when it's coming out. I'm very excited for that trailer. And, of course, here on Movies TV Mad, I will do a reaction to it. And I can't wait to finally see some footage of this movie. Because you can't say what we saw at Fandom was anything revealing. So, I'm excited. Yusuf Ojawan, it's all about the money. Entertainment, Yusuf, is a business. We're in a capitalist world. Of course it's all about the money. Of course it is. They're here to make money. But they've got to do the right things to make the money. They entertain us and make us happy. They make the money. So I'm not going to begrudge them making a profit. If they make something that I enjoy, that's the idea. So it's not a crime that they want to make money. MSGT, didn't we get a Flash trailer about 17 years ago? Sarcasm. Probably. But we never got a Flash trailer. We got something at Fandom that was about 10 seconds long. It was nothing. So we're going to get a proper trailer and we can make judgments about this from Ronnie Dodge. I got to go, mate. Have a good evening. If you're live in the morning, see you then. See you later, Ronnie. See you later. Thank you. Good speed to you, young man. Good speed to you. So it's been a huge week, an exciting week. People will speak their nonsense, but at the end of the day, this is the new era. It's happening. There's no way around it. You can fire James Gunn until the cows come home. It's funny how they'll fire James Gunn, but they're leaving Peter Safran alone. I think that's really funny. I mean, I like Peter Safran. I've always liked him. When he used to talk about like Shazam and the Suicide Squad, I thought that would be a good guy to run DC. He's a good talker. He seems like he knows what he's talking about. So I like Peter Safran, but I like James Gunn as well. It's funny how people are ready to forgive Ezra Miller, but they won't forgive James Gunn. Interesting that. The hypocrisy isn't lost on me. It's all about biases. It's all about agendas. That's the problem with social media. Everyone pushing their own agenda. My agenda is to have the best DC movies, animation, TV shows that we can and games that we can. That's what I want to see. I don't care about directors. I don't care about actors being dropped. My loyalty isn't to actors and directors. That isn't being a DC fan in any way, shape or form. I want DC to be the best that it can be. I want the whole world to love and be hyped up for DC like they are the MCU. That's what I want to see. So I don't care. My loyalty isn't with directors, whether I admire their stuff or I don't, or actors, whether I like them as those characters or I didn't. I want to see great DC. Now, if people don't want to see great DC and want to keep on having this civil war about firing James Gunn and restoring this and restoring that, I'm sorry. I'm not playing your games. James Gunn is here to stay. And the only way he and Peter go is if what they do failed. And I know some of you are quietly hoping it fails. I don't think it's going to fail. I don't think that one little bit. We'll see when the stuff comes out. But I think it's utterly exciting. I like the lineup I've seen so far. I don't see how you can't like the lineup as a DC fan. If there was no Superman, no Batman, no Supergirl, no Swamp Thing, and it was just Waller and a few other shows, I'd say, all right, maybe I see what they're saying. But we got a bit of everything, you know. And this isn't the complete slate for Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So I don't see how you can be underwhelmed. It doesn't make sense to me. But we will see. We will see. But I think it's good. I think we're heading in the right direction. I don't see what else they could have done, what they could have announced, apart from a Justice League movie, which would have... Look, a Justice League movie would have hyped everyone up, no doubt. And you may get that within chapter 1. Maybe you'll get that at the end of chapter 1. Who knows? Let's see what they're going to do. Because I think that chapter 1 is going to be very, very long. Because you're talking about probably, it's interesting because 2 chapters, 10 years? Is that what we're talking about? But they have to get their castings right. They have to make good movies, good animation, good gaming. The gaming announcements will be very exciting as well. So yeah, I think the potential of this setup can make them a lot of money. And I just don't see, like, people, like when I think about what Adby and DeLuca were planning with having Black Adam versus Superman, it sounds very exciting, but ultimately, if you think about Black Adam and the lack of excitement the audience had for him, I don't think that would have ended up well. How Henry Cavill's Superman didn't uplift the Black Adam movie? Question marks, question mark. So I don't see how that's better than what we're getting now. I don't get it. As I say, it's all about agendas. That's the problem right now with life, with social media. Scott Edwards, you can't say anything about the name I keep. Scott Edwards posting, I don't know what you're talking about, Scott. Film Goblin, I still believe what you said about there isn't the DC Studios and that James Gunn is just a front for the old regime. Well, that is an absolute possibility, my friend. That is an absolute possibility that DC Studios is just an empty place, although they're starting to get a bit of a writing team there. But yeah, they haven't announced about who's working in DC Studios. Where's the social media account? So yes, I could have a point there that, yeah, he's just a front for the old regime because they weren't good public relations. So they've just taken a back seat. I mean, you look at what they're doing with the Flash movie, exactly the same thing as they were doing under Hamada, but it's a different timeline, different ideas. But we will see. Do you think Joker will be in Batman Brave and the Bold? Interesting. I don't think so, but we will see. We will see, yeah. I think he'll be, this is why he's having a meeting with Matt Reeves to make sure that what he wants to do doesn't clash with what Matt's going to do. So there's always possibilities of the Joker. I don't think this film will involve the Joker, or maybe the Joker will cameo. I don't think it will be a Joker villain movie. Film Goblin, I believe Green Lantern should have been a movie and not a series. But as I already said, Film Goblin, we could be getting a film, a Green Lantern movie, and this series is just a tie-in. Because he hasn't announced the whole chapter. So you don't know that you're not getting that. Film Globe, because you don't have HBO Max. MSGT, I hope not. Tired of Joker and Catwoman in every single Batman iteration. Well, I'm sure they'll be there. I have to apologise to that. They are important. They will be there eventually, or in some sorts, or maybe even in the Elseworlds or whatever. They will be there in some kind of form. They will always be there because people like them generally. People say the same thing about Doctor Who. Why do we always have the Daleks or the Master? Because people love them, generally. That's why. It's part of the identity. So Catwoman and the Joker are popular. Anything with the Joker in it, it uplifts its box office. Suicide Squad 2016 did quite well in the box office because the Joker was in it. The Dark Knight did $1 billion because the Joker was in it, right? Everything with the Joker in it gets uplifted. Film Goblin, the Joker is more popular than Batman himself. Very popular, as I've just explained. There's no way they'll ever say, we better not use the Joker. Done right, he can uplift your movie more than Batman can. That's why the Joker movie did so much money. People love the Joker. He's a very interesting character when you get him right. Batman 89 did well. The Joker was in it. It's all there. It's all there. It's not just comic book stands who like the Joker. It's actually the general audience who love the Joker. But you've got to get him right. MSGT, yeah, I get that, but tired of them. Joker will surely be in DCU, but save him for much later. Well, look, I don't know. It doesn't matter if he's in later or at the beginning. What's the difference? I mean, I don't really understand. Film Goblin, we have a Joker demon inside of us. I think we all have. Yeah, we could all become the Joker. That's the potential of humanity. The Joker is anarchy. Is the potential of waking up one day and becoming insane. The Joker, one of the Joker graphic novels is when he has one bad day and he just loses it. He's an ordinary guy with a wife, loses his shit and becomes the Joker. So, yes, the Joker is a very relatable character. It's about someone just breaking free and saying, fuck this shit. I'm going to put some clown makeup on. I'm going to laugh like a fucking lunatic. And I'm going to fucking kill a bunch of people and do what the fuck I want. Because there's that part of us that controls ourselves through the frustration. And the Joker says, enough's a fucking enough. I've had enough of humanity and their bullshit. And Joker becomes very honest. Because people are very dishonest. How are you? You don't care how I am. All that bullshit. But the Joker just says, fuck this. I'm going to go mad. And that's very, very relatable. MSGT, it's like Harley Quinn. People love her and they smothered us with the character in the DCU. More movies than Batman. John, what are your thoughts on the Joker from Gotham TV series? I think that is one of the best Jokers, live action Jokers I've ever seen, my friend. And that kid should actually be cast in DC Universe. He won't be, but I think he's equally as good as Heath Ledger. Now, that's your hot take for tonight. Very good. I was very impressed. In fact, that Joker is as good as Michael Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor in Smallville. And that's how high I regard the actor and the characterization. Because I didn't like everything about the Gotham series. I thought it was very slow. I think they like to drag it out. I think obviously the villains were more successful, I liked Ben McKenzie as Gordon, but I preferred the villains. I think he was really about the villains. And I think the way they did the Rogues Gallery was absolutely fantastic. Reno Jack, Cameron Monaghan, yeah, brilliant. Waz Doubler saying, Young Justice Lex Luthor is great. He is. Lex Luthor's always great. Scott Edwards, you can't comment on the name Mongo. Okay, I won't. Hope you're enjoying the live chat. We've had lots of debates so far tonight. It's predominantly about the DCU, but we can talk about anything in entertainment. Film Gobbling, Alan Moore is Joker in real life. I wouldn't go that far, but he does hate the movie business. But I don't blame him. I do get what he's saying. Scott Edwards, I knew it. Knew what? I haven't said anything. That wasn't a confirmation, my friend. I'm afraid you're going to have to try harder. Scott Edwards, Boba Fett finale before Mando season 3, maybe. Film Goblin, Joker and Two-Face are the most relatable Batman villains. For you, yeah. Well, I do think Two-Face isn't... Actually, I'll go back to what you said there. Two-Face is a very interesting character as well. Because like the Joker, ordinary person that just loses the shit. A hero. And I think what Nolan did with him was exactly what Harvey Two-Face is. Who Harvey Dent is. He starts off as a good bloke. Then he goes fucking nuts. And I like that. Because that's what happens to people ultimately. Not as dramatically or as exaggerated. But, people stop being reasonable in the end. Because, you get shat on. And in the end in life, when you get to my age, you just think, fuck this shit. I've tried being a good bloke, right? What do you get when you're a good bloke? It's all men, right? You get this propaganda that women are good and men are bad, right? So if that's what you think we are, we might as well fucking act that way anyway, right? That's what happens in the end. And that's who Harvey Two-Face is. And that's who the Joker is. People who say, fuck this shit. Let's just be who we'd rather fucking be. And stop trying to protect people from our insanity. Waz 007, my favourite Lex Luthor is from Young Justice cartoon. John, the Riddler and the Penguin were great in Gotham. Oh, they were fucking amazing. No question about that. Waz 007, want to see a Clayface in DCU. I'm sure. I think you may see Clayface in Matt Reeves' universe before you see it in DC Universe. Waz 007, I think Scott Adkins as Deathstroke would good choice. We will see. I mean, the fan castings never stop. I mean, sometimes some of the fan castings I see online are just hideous. I'm not talking about that one, but Scott Edwards, I mean, Boba Fett finale is awesome, and you should watch it before Mando Season 3 premieres. Film Goblin, Zack Snyder will become Joker or Two-Face in the future to get back at WB and the critics and his haters. Zack Snyder has made 3 DC films, 3 very good DC films. He's made a 300 movie. He's made a zombie movie. He's made another zombie movie. Zack Snyder has had a very successful career. And the reason he fell out with WB is because he wanted everything his own way. I like Zack as a person, as a parent. I like him as a creative. But Zack wanted everything his own way. And the situation with WB isn't one-sided. He caused them as many problems as they caused him. They wanted to make money. He wanted to make art. And he wasn't willing to compromise. And that, my friend, isn't how Hollywood works or the industry works in a capitalist state. So I don't see Zack as the total victim. Some of the shit him and Ray Fisher were pulling during the marketing of the Snyder Cut was also a disgrace. And us fans were waiting for a celebration, and what we got is 2 children arguing over their fucking toys. And it was a disgrace. Scott Edwards, could we get Aquaman 3? I don't think with Jason Momoa, no. But maybe Jason Momoa stays as Aquaman, and maybe we get an Aqualad who will actually be the focus of the new DC universe. Maybe that. Let's wait and see. But yeah, as I say, I think these original actors will be phased out. Film Goldie, I think it's more Zack Snyder wanted to be himself and not be someone he's not, that WB wanted him to be, and not because he wanted things his own way. I disagree, Film Goblin. I'll tell you why. Whose money was he playing with, Film Goblin? Whose money was he playing with? His own? He was working with Warner Brothers' money. They wanted to create a franchise. They wanted to be successful. They're not Oxfam. They're not a charity organization. So when you're getting a budget, right, you can do your thing up to a point, but you can't just go in there and do whatever you want and wind up the audience and not make the money, because it is a money-driven industry. So they were willing to service him up to a point, but he wasn't willing to be serviced up to a point. He wanted to do what he wanted to do. So I love him. I think he's a great guy. But at the end of the day, just because I love his stuff, I'm not going to be, deaf, dumb, and blind over him. And that all relationships break down. It takes 2 to tango, my friend. So I don't think Zack Snyder is anyone's victim. But because he's a smart guy, he won the war in the end, and he got his Justice League movie released. And I'm really glad that he did. Film Golly, I'm just saying that because Zack himself said he could only be himself and not try to be something he's not. Yes, that's right. And in life, when you're not using other people's money, that's great. But when you're working for a company, you must adhere to some of the stuff that they want. And he wasn't willing to do that. But yes, you're right. He can only be himself. It was a mistake to put Christopher Nolan in charge of the DCEU and allow him to bring in Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder can only be Zack Snyder. And Zack Snyder wasn't what was needed to create a kind of, a movie franchise for a general audience, because he doesn't care about the general audience. So he shouldn't have been brought in the first place. Zack Snyder is someone you bring in once you've earned the trust of the general audience, and you can have him in an Elseworld or something. But you don't bring Zack Snyder in to launch something like this, because he's not going to bring in the audience that you need him to. So it was a mistake from the very beginning. Whereas 007, Zack and WB was a mess. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Doesn't mean Zack Snyder's a bad filmmaker. I like his films, but it didn't work. And they could not continue with Zack Snyder. But they started on the Zack Snyder road. They should have finished what they started with him, then moved him on quietly. How they did it was ridiculous, and they all acted like rank amateurs, and it was a fucking disgrace. And in the 100-year history of Warner, it's one of the most embarrassing moments, ridiculous, despicable moments in the studio. This is where we are in entertainment today. People are like amateurs rather than professionals. We see it on Twitter all the time. Calling out their audience. It really is a dead time in the industry. Waz 007, WB want Nolan head DC films before Zack. He should never have been near DC. He made 3 good DC movies, Christopher Nolan, but he was not a man to be running this because he doesn't care about the general audience. He's an auteur. You can't have auteurs running, these franchises. And in a way, James is an auteur, but he understands this and he's willing to give and take to the studio he works for. He understands. He's there to make them successful. He's not just there to do whatever the fuck he wants. That's the difference. And that's how it should work. You are working with other people's money. And people forget that. People are very blindsided, A director should just have their own vision. Film Golden, I think Nolan should have never been hired to do Batman, to be honest. Same with Tim Burton. I couldn't agree less. I'm going to say that Zack Snyder should never have been hired to do Superman then. But I think Christopher Nolan made 3 brilliant Batman movies. And I think that Tim Burton, without Tim Burton's the pioneer for what Batman films are today. Without Tim Burton's look, that wouldn't be what we have today. So Tim Burton's a pioneer. Film Goblin, Joel Schumacher was actually perfect for Batman and should have made a trilogy. No, his movies were failed. Now, I think Batman Forever was pretty good. Batman and Robin was entertaining, but it didn't make the money. So, yeah, no, that's your opinion. You're entitled to it, but yeah. Unfortunately, you seem to back the wrong horses. But James Gunn's here now. James Gunn's not going anywhere. James and Peter are running it. James Gunn and Peter are going to be very, very successful. I know that's going to upset and hurt some propaganda merchants, but that's where we are today. And unfortunately, see this smile, because it's going to be smiling a lot, because the propaganda merchants are going to lose, and us actual DC fans are going to win. So words are cheap. Anyone on social media can go that, can go that, can go that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you say. Just because you say something, it doesn't make it factual, right? A hot take isn't fact. MSGG Schumacher was so bad. Well, listen, he did Phone Booth, one of my favorite films, but ultimately, yeah, his Batman efforts didn't work out. Reno Jack, Batman and Robin is one of my favorite comedies ever made. Film Goblin, yeah, but people also didn't like Burton's movies, and WB got reactionary with Batman Returns backlash and fired him from Batman 3. That's very true, but guess what? Tim still made 2 excellent Batman movies. I think he wasn't happy with the first Batman film. He was more happy with Returns than he was the first film. I think Returns is a better film than the first film. But ultimately, I enjoyed both. So if I got to make 2 Batman films and I got fired for the third, I wouldn't be too bothered, by the way, because I'd made 2 Batman movies. Tim Burton's made 2 Batman movies more than you and me. So that's a success story. That's not a disappointment. So, yeah, as I say, they're a business and they felt, he's not selling us toys. So they went with someone who would sell them toys, and ultimately he didn't sell them toys and it became a disaster. So they made a mistake. Waz Douglas, Batman Forever made more money than Batman Returns, but Batman Returns is a better film than Batman Forever. That's the point. I mean, yeah, Batman Forever did well. Batman Forever did very well, but then Batman and Robin was a flop. So there was no consistency in the Schumacher era. Waz Douglas, I wish Tim made Batman 3. It would have been awesome. Maybe he still can. Maybe he still can in a DC Elseworlds. Hey, you never know. Reno Jack, Batman Returns had controversy due to the media blasting nothing but triggered parents, but real ones know how great that film is. Yeah, listen, there's always, look, even prior to social media, there's always going to be these situations. Triggered parents thought it was too deep and too graphic. And obviously, like the stuff with the penguin was pretty dark. I do think Batman Returns probably should have been R-rated. MSGT, Tim Burton for Batman Beyond with Keaton. That would be awesome. Film Goblin, yes, because Burton had to compromise with Batman 89 like Nolan was Batman Begins. And once those were successful, WB gave them freedom. And it was too much of a deviation from the comics. I don't think deviation from the comics is bad. As long as you're not trying to, do a graphic novel and calling the film a graphic novel. I don't think Batman Returns ever pretended to be doing a graphic novel. So I didn't mind the deviation from the comics that Tim Burton did in Batman Returns. I thought it was very exciting. I thought they had great villains. I thought the Penguin was outstanding. And I think you can deviate. I think these days people are more triggered. So I think you need, Tim Burton today, if he did what he did with Returns, it would have to be a DC Elseworlds. If you call it a DC Elseworlds, then you can do whatever the fuck you want. Matt Reeves can do whatever the fuck he wants, but he didn't deviate as much from the comic books. But I think you can deviate and still make a great comic book movie. The reason, Zack Snyder deviated from the comics a lot, and the reason that wasn't received properly because people misunderstood and thought he was actually there to create an MCU Part 2, and he wasn't. And it was marketed in a way. They were telling people that's what was happening, but it wasn't happening. And that's where the problems began. A misunderstanding that Zack Snyder was actually doing his own Injustice story. Unfortunately, Zack Snyder didn't tell anyone what he was doing, and neither did the studio. So you can't expect the audience to guess. But if you tell people that you're adapting Injustice, then they're going to give you more leeway in the stuff that Zack was doing. But they didn't. Zack didn't communicate with the general audience, and neither did the studio. And that's where the problems began. It's all about communication. James Gunn communicates with the fans. He's every time he says something, he comes back and says, maybe I wasn't clear enough. So I'm clearing things up. So already you have someone communicating with the fans. The guy can talk for anyone. He could talk for the world. The guy, his communication skills are fantastic, and that's the difference. MSGT, the Arrowverse and the MCU present plenty of deviation. Fans love that crap. Yeah, deviation can be good, but nothing, just because I've said deviation is good, it doesn't mean comic book accuracy is bad. But I think that you can deviate, but sometimes you can also be faithful to the comics. There's a place for everything. Film Goblin, the problem with Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises is they are more Nolan-type films and less Batman films. I think they are Batman films, but I also think they're Christopher Nolan films and Christopher Nolan's vision of Batman, and that's okay. I don't think that's a problem. You could say the problem with Zack Snyder films, they're more Zack Snyder films rather than Superman films, rather than Batman films, rather than Justice League films. You could say the same thing about Zack Snyder. Reno Jack, Matt Reeves' universe is a lot like Earth 1 comics, very grounded. Film Goblin, I blame the problems with Batman and Robin on WB and not Joel. Well, yeah, look, they want to make money, so they're interfering, and in the end, you fuck up a director because you're on top of him all the time. But that's the problem. That happens a lot. It's part of the business of entertainment. How do you do it? What's the right thing to do? Let someone do whatever the fuck they want. You never know what's going to work. Who would have thought that Aquaman, the film coming straight after Justice League, which was a disaster, would make $1 billion? It's very difficult to tell. Film Goblin, Batman and Robin had too much studio interference because WB wanted to sell more toys and not make a good movie. I think you can make a good movie and sell toys. Star Wars A New Hope, great movie. It sold toys. Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, great movie. It sold toys. Star Wars The Return of the Jedi, great movie. It sold toys. And let's look at the fucking prequels. Now, I worked in a toy shop called Toy Stack when the prequels came out. And let me tell you, no matter what people tell you about the prequels being bad, the double lightsabers sold like hotcakes. Jar Jar Binks, a character apparently everyone hated, sold like hotcakes. It was amazing. It was amazing. I worked in that toy shop, and the Phantom Menace toys, we couldn't order enough stock. Waz007, Jesse, bad choice for Lex. Jesse would better for Riddler. Well, a lot of people say that. Film Goblin, Batman and Robin had too much studio. No, I've read that. The Earth 1 Batman comics are amazing, except I hated that they turned the bat signal into a cell phone. Brutal. Waz007, Batman and Robin Rush film. Film Goblin, I feel bad for Joel Schumacher getting the hate he got, especially for his sexuality. Well, I didn't even know about his sexuality, so there you go. But people on the internet always deliver something else, in it. Film Goblin after Batman and Robin. Film Goblin, but I did like Batman Forever. I actually do like Batman and Robin. I think it's entertaining, but it is overstuffed, I think. But I don't hate that film. I thought George Clooney was a bad choice for Batman and Bruce Wayne. I thought he was a better Bruce Wayne than he was Batman, but he was the flavour of the month, and that's why he got the gig. Batman Forever, Jim Carrey as the Riddler was sensational. Tommy Lee Jones was a lot of fun as Two-Face. I mean, again, flavour of the month. That's the only reason he got that gig. But I don't think Joel Schumacher did a lot wrong with those films. They were very camp, but they also were very entertaining. From Goblin, I did like Batman Forever. Waz007, Star Wars convention in my hometown. Also. But you see, these days, with social media and videos like this and platforms like mine, there's a lot of analysis and conversation about film. I bet you most people talk about entertainment more than they do consuming it. And that's part of the sad element of the world we live in today. Film Goblin, the Alfred and Bruce story in Batman and Robin was done well, though. It was. I've always said that. I thought Clooney and Michael Gough were exceptional, and I cry every time I see that. So that film wasn't a total wipeout. It was a flop. But I even thought Schwarzenegger was fun as Mr. Freeze. Now, he's not someone I would have cast as Mr. Freeze, but he was a big name. But I still think he was okay. I thought that Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, sensational. So I don't think it's all bad. I was worried that Alfred would die. So was I. Film Goblin. And George Clooney did a well job in those scenes. Yeah, he was amazing. George Clooney's a really good actor, but he wasn't Batman. He knows it. Even he jokes about it now. But he did okay. He did his best. I thought that Colin, what's his name? The guy who played Dick Grayson. I thought he was a really good Robin and Dick Grayson. I liked him in both films. But you see that, what happened was the director fell out with Val Kilmer after Batman Forever. That was the problem. If Kilmer stayed in the lead role in Batman and Robin, I think there would have been more control. And I think he could have controlled the director a bit more. Renee Arnold as Mr. Freeze is peak hilarious. I love it. I love it. I hate it when people talk during the movie. Waz007, George was a better Bruce Wayne. Film Goblin, I did like Chris O'Donnell. Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was great casting. Chris had great quality. So at least we've had one movie live action Robin. But I am excited about Damian Wayne. I've always been a big fan of Damian Wayne, especially in the animation. I think he's a lot of fun. He's fun when he wants to kill, but Batman won't let him, or people are saying to him, well, you can't do that, Damian. People are trying to calm him down, but he's very aggressive and he just hates all these people because they won't let him kill. And I just think there's a lot of fun. So if they pick the right young actor for this role, I think it's going to be amazing. And I've noticed a few Snyderverse fans saying, oh, we know why he wants a younger Robin. It's just disgusting stuff to say. There's no need for that. It's so utterly, utterly toxic. And you just end up driving people against your cause because you're going below the belt. Waz007, my favourite is Robin Tim Drake. I don't know much about him. Film Goblin, people complained about his age even though it made sense because Bruce didn't adopt him. he wanted to help him. Yeah, it deviated from the source material, but I loved it. Waz Douglas said, my favourite Bat Family character is Nightwing. He's another classic. Yeah, we'll get them all. We will get them all. They've just decided to start with Damian first, but we will see Dick Grayson, we will see Tim Drake, we will see Jason Todd. This is a 10-year plan that hopefully goes beyond those 10 years if it's successful. This is the first time we get to do proper DC, as far as I'm concerned. We've never done it before, not like this. Reno Jack, Tim Drake is the smartest Robin and the best detective. I need to read up on him because, yeah, I don't know much about him. Film Goblin, since he lost his family and Bruce was able to relate to his pain and anger, didn't want him to go down the dark path. I think with every Robin comes a fantastic dynamic, a different dynamic for Batman. And I think this is the interesting thing about Damian Wayne, that he is a young tween that has been trained by the League of Assassins. And with that brings in Talia, which that brings Ra's al Ghul in as well. I mean, it's really funny that they didn't even call him Ra's al Ghul in the Nolan version. They called him Raz. They didn't even fucking pronounce it properly. So we're actually hopefully going to get a Ra's al Ghul, a Talia al Ghul. We're going to try not to deviate from the comics too much, because I think this kind of universe needs more comic book loyalty, and I think James will look to do that. But I think at the end of the day, anyone who can take Guardians of the Galaxy and make it a big blockbuster and make whatever it made, nearly $1 billion, I think you can say this man is talented. People underestimate James Gunn. No, I've joked before that people treat him like he's Francis Ford Coppola. He's not. He's not on that level of the peak creators we had when I grew up. People my age had. He's not that, even though people think he is. But he's very talented, and he knows what he's doing, and he knows how to entertain the audience. Is he the perfect human being? Probably not. Has he probably done some stuff that maybe is a bit dodgy? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I'm not here to judge every fucking human being. He ain't a mass murderer. He ain't broken any laws as far as we know. So he's running DC with Peter Safran, and that's the way that it is. So, you know, at the end of the day, that's the way I see it. I'm not God. I'm not a God. Whatever God you support or believe in or pray to, maybe you don't believe in any or pray to. I don't pray to anyone myself. But it doesn't matter. No one's perfect. We all act like we're perfect and we judge others because it helps our agenda, whether it's politics or anything. Renee, do you think that Gunn and Reeves have discussed which villains to do in each other's separate universe so that they don't have the same villains in each film? Absolutely. They're either having a meeting, it's scheduled, or they've already had a scheduled meeting. And that's exactly why they were having that meeting. To, you know, Gunn is going to make sure that everyone communicates. So there's not this problem. This is what we didn't have at DC. This is what Ann Sarnoff was going on when she was at Warner Media. That for the first time, people were talking and communicating. That wasn't happening. For example, David F. Sandberg and the people who were making Black Adam weren't communicating, even though, you know, Black Adam is part of Shazam's world. Ridiculous. James Gunn is going at this professionally and properly. Whereas Douglas and James Gunn said Ezra Miller might stay. They said they don't know what's happening, and they're not, you know, they're just saying, you know, they're waiting for him to go through, you know, to get better, and then they'll see. I think they'll phase him out slowly but surely. And the way they'll do it, you won't even notice it. That's what I think they're going to do with all these castings that are nothing to do with them. Now, Safran was involved with the casting of Zachary Levi. So that would be an assumption that he will stay. Film Goblin, but you just don't know. The reason why I say Schumacher was a good choice is because he actually read the comics and was a fan of the Adam West series, knew his stuff. Nolan wasn't a fan of the comics, neither was Burton. Well, Nolan definitely had very little knowledge of the comics. Any comics, DC or Marvel. That's why he brought in Goya, who has a lot of knowledge in the comics, to help him to write the script. That's why he wrote the scripts and they both wrote the story. That's what Goya was there in the first place. So you're absolutely right. But I would say for a man who didn't know the comics, Christopher Nolan, I thought he did a pretty bang-up job at kind of characterizing Bruce Wayne and Batman. In Batman Begins, I think that's his best effort. And everyone goes on about The Dark Knight. And I think he got the Joker right. I think very interesting. So even though he wasn't really a comic man or no loyalty to the comics, I still think he did a good job. Tim Burton may not have had a connection or love for the comics. I don't know. But again, I enjoyed what he gave us. So I wouldn't say just because they didn't have a love for the comics that you still can't do something. I think for people, if it's true, I know in Nolan's case, he barely has any knowledge. I mean, Nolan didn't even go to film school, but he's a great director. So yeah, I still like those versions, whether or not they're fans of the source material or not. But Joel Schumacher, you could tell he was a fan of the 60s series because he literally made it the same as the 60s series. I think some people found that a problem. I thought it was interesting. The colours were very bright, weren't they? Sometimes a bit too bright. But yeah, it was a very campy series. I think that Forever and Batman and Robin were very entertaining films. I wouldn't call them bad. Film Goblin, Batman Begins works is because it was supposed to be Darren Aronofsky who was supposed to direct that movie, and Frank Miller worked in the script being based on his Batman Year One story. Yeah, but the film that you saw wasn't written by any of those people. That story was written by Christopher Nolan and David Goyer. Aronofsky and Miller are not credited in that film. I'll check the credits out again, but I don't think they are. So yeah, Batman Begins works. Christopher Nolan and David Goyer did a very good job with it. And I think The Dark Knight is a very, very good film in its own right, but I prefer Batman Begins. So again, you can't give Aronofsky credit for that. Whereas 007, Batman Begins is a good film. It's one of my favourite Batman films, if not my favourite one, because Christian Bale is a fantastic Bruce Wayne. A fantastic Bruce Wayne. And the characterization, the music by James Newton Howard and Hans Zimmer is beautifully emotional as well, and that helps. But I just thought he gave such an emotional connection and broken character connection to the character, and I think that really helped. So Batman Begins is a brilliant film. Reno Jack, Schumacher's Batman movies are fun in hindsight. Batman had the ability to have dark and also campy dull takes. Yeah, I did enjoy them. I'm not going to say I hated them. Waz 007, I think Batman Begins is better than The Dark Knight. I agree. Yeah, I think, if I remember rightly, me and my friend went to see Batman and Robin, and I remember the opening when they're fighting Mr. Freeze, and it's very action-packed, and I thought, fucking hell, this is so awesome. So I did have a good time with it. I didn't sit there saying it was a bad movie, but I remember a friend's father saying they didn't like it. So a lot of people were saying it was bad. But when I sat there with my mate and I saw the action, I thought, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I think people hated it because it was campy, it was silly, but I enjoyed it. I think it went more over the top. I think if they kept with Val Kilmer in the second movie, I think they would have got away with it. I think Val Kilmer probably, policed Schumacher in the first movie, and that's why they fell out. And I think that's why the first movie from Schumacher is better than his second movie, because Val Kilmer was a very disciplined actor, and you can just tell that. So he didn't take any shit. Film Goblin, that's what I read. Yeah, I know my stuff. And oh, you're talking about that. Film, yeah, but Nolan and Goyer inherited from Aronofsky and Miller work. They actually were close to shooting that movie before they left. They built the sets before Nolan came in. Well, yeah, building sets is one thing, but the actual words and the story for that movie is Christopher Nolan's take and David Goyer's take. You can't give the credit for the screen story to Aronofsky and Miller. You can't do that. Maybe you can give the set, maybe you can give them kudos for the sets, which are not that extraordinary anyway. But yeah, that's Nolan and Goyer's movie. You can't be taking that away from Nolan and Goyer. Reno Jack, Schumacher also recast Chris O'Donnell to be Robin. It was set to be Marlon Wayans, who was cast by Burton. I think Marlon Wayans would have been a fucking disaster, in my opinion. I mean, today they would start calling that woke. I don't see. It's no problem to have a black Robin. That's not my problem. My problem is Marlon Wayans is a clown. Why I wouldn't want Marlon Wayans to play Robin. That's my problem. Imagine that. Just you close your eyes and close your ears and imagine Marlon Wayans as Robin. I mean, it'd be like you'd be waiting for the canned laughter in a sitcom or something, right? Nah, that would be fucking, yeah. Chris O'Donnell was brilliant. I mean, they may as well fucking cast Eddie fucking Murphy, you know, or Chris Rock. I think Chris Rock may have been a better Robin than Marlon Wayans. Bloody hell. Tim Burton, what were you on? And by the way, Jack Nicholson, fucking incredible Joker. Incredible Joker. A frightening performance. He's more frightening as the Joker than Heath Ledger is. He's fucking insane in that movie. Insane. Phil Goblin, I guess Snyder should probably go back to film school because somehow his abilities aren't working. Sometimes I wonder if Snyder struggles what to do on set when he films and doesn't know how to plan. Well, actually, Film Goblin, from what I've researched about Zach, he's a meticulous planner. Actors saying that everything's planned out days in advance, that he draws everything. So I think he's very organized. I think Zack Snyder does things his way and knows exactly what he's doing. He knows what he wants to do. I think he's a very good director. I think his cinematography is beautiful. I think he uses CGI as a paintbrush. I like him, but he's not a general audience director. That's what I'm saying. And that's why the DCEU and his plans for the DCEU, if they were actually plans, didn't work. But I think in 20 years' time, people will look back at his 3 movies and say, wow, beautiful stuff. Was 007, Batman and Robin better film than Spider-Man 3? Do you know what? I don't understand the hate for Spider-Man 3. It's not as good as the first and second film, but I still think it's really good. I mean, the VFX for Sandman is pretty cool for the time as well. But I liked the film. I don't think it's a bad film at all. I just think evil Spidey was too convincing. And I thought Toby did a really good job. It's a bit like Superman 3. People didn't like evil Superman, but because Chris was so convincing as it. But I don't hate Spider-Man 3. Why is 007 Batman and Robin better film? Oh no, I've read that. So yeah. I don't hate Batman Forever and Batman Robin. I don't hate Spider-Man 3. And Spider-Man 3 still made a lot of money. And for Sam should have been allowed. That Spider-Man 3 is not even Sam's movie. They interfered with that movie. And the apology should have been allowing him to do Spider-Man 4, not to come in with another actor. I never got into the Amazing Spider-Man films. I've got them. I've watched them several times. And I was surprised. Abraham Herrera, same thing happened to Da Vinci. It is known in his famous painting. He made corrections. I'm sure the people who ordered the paintings requested the changes. Yeah, it happens, right? It happens all over. Film Goblin, yeah. But I think Snyder had ideas but doesn't know how to execute them. And I think he struggles with not doing the job properly, like George Lucas when he made the prequels. But that's an opinion. I think George Lucas did do the prequels properly. George Lucas had a vision. Zack Snyder had a vision. Now, those visions may not be to the taste of everyone, but George Lucas created Star Wars, and he wanted to tell you the story. And the reason you've got Jake Lloyd, the little boy, as Anakin in the first movie, that was his plan, to bring in a new generation of fans in. And he did. It worked. The Phantom Menace worked for exactly the people it needed to work for. Kids. Attack of the Clones told the story of how the clones were formed. It works. Revenge of the Sith is a gripping ending. When he's trying to kill Padme, I'm breaking in tears. I feel it. I love the prequels as much as I do the original trilogy. I never saw why people hated the prequels. And I don't agree with you there, Film Goblin, your criticism of Zach. He just does things his way. Maybe some things don't work out. The execution isn't as good as it should be. But I think mostly Zach does what he needs to do and wants to do. Whereas 007, Sam Raimi was a great choice for The Flash. I would have liked to see him do Swamp Thing, actually, because of his history in horror. Abraham Herrera, you know what Lucas and Snyder have in common? They are very nice people. Very nice people, yeah. And obviously, George Lucas is a pioneer. He invented Star Wars. Never forget that. Film gobbling. I think Snyder and Lucas have had and can't keep up with everyone else. Don't agree. George Lucas is a genius. A genius. He invented Star Wars. I think Zack Snyder does exactly what Zack Snyder wants to do. I don't think Zack Snyder has any issue with keeping up. But he isn't everyone's cup of tea. And that's okay. He's not a general audience director. And that's okay. But he makes very, very good films for a lot of people. But he couldn't remain at DC because he wasn't right for what they needed to do for their bottom line. And there's nothing wrong with that. Brown Branch, keeping that shirt nice. I see. What's up, man? So we got our info on the new DCU. We did, and I'm very, very excited. I think it's great. I think it's epic. I think we've got a great future with James and Peter, and this is just the beginning. Seeing this slate, I feel that we're on to a good thing with these guys. I really do. And I think wait till you see the films, wait till you see the streaming shows, wait till you play the games, wait till you see the animation. It's going to be really, really good and exciting. And I think most DC fans, and I mean DC fans, like not people with allegiances to directors and actors, I think are very excited. There's DC fans who don't have a voice on social media, who are excited. The loud people are from a certain fandom. But just because you're loud, it doesn't mean you're a better fan than the fans that are quiet. So there's real DC fans, not the ones that buy the comics, the ones who watch the animation, the ones that just adore DC in general, who are excited. And this is what they've been wanting because they're the ones who weren't being represented in the DCEU. MSGT, Snyder is great. People just wanted the MCU feel. I don't think people wanted an MCU feel, but I think people wanted Superman to feel like an inspirational hero rather than someone who blows up a petrol station and doesn't care. Someone who breaks a villain's neck and then drops a satellite on a general and basically doesn't seem fazed anymore after the initial killing of Zod. There are issues with the Snyderverse, and I don't think it's just about things being like the MCU or like Snyder. I think people want to be excited for DC. And ultimately, he was the wrong person to do DC for the general audience. And that is the truth of the situation. I like him. I do. I don't have any issue with Zack Snyder. I'm just saying it how it is. And that's the way it is. Where's 007? Howard the Duck, underrated film. Film Goblin. If it were up to me, I'd just let the studio tell me what to do and wouldn't come up with my own ideas. If I was a film director, well, that's not how it works. Right, listen, there's two types of directors. There's the directors who make a lot of these MCU stuff. They're just brought in. And basically, Feige directs the directors and tells them what to do. I think after time, Feige's team handled the action and even the VFX. But there's also those directors who have a vision, who write and direct the movie. So we don't want to take that away, film gobbling. And I think it's a collaborative effort. You know, as a director, you want to do your thing, but you've also got to collaborate with the people who give you the budget for the film. There's always got to be someone who says, you know, reels you back in and says, hang on, mate, I think that's a bit too much there. I don't think that person should float over the lake. How is that going to happen then? So there's always, you know, it's a 50-50 collaborative effort. MSGT, see, MCU feel. The MCU is full of directors for hire who simply jump out ho-hum. But I don't think that James Gunn and Peter Safran have said that. I think they've talked about the stuff the writers and directors work on in DCU to be unique. And that's very different to the MCU. Brain Brunch, I would love to see Jake Gyllenhaal as the Batman for the Brave and the Bold. Batman, DCU, my dream cast. Interesting. Jake's a good actor. I think probably he's gone past the age for Batman and the kind of Batman that they want, but who knows? Anything's possible in this game. I think it's more than having an MCU DC. It's about having a connective tissue. It's about entertaining children as well as adults. The thing is with Snyderverse stands, you always get this where there's a selfishness about it. Why does it have to be told his for? Why does it have to be humor for? Because basically, superheroes were created, comic books were created for children originally, and they should appease and attract children. And they shouldn't just be for an adult audience. And if you can't see that as an adult, I think you've got a problem. MSGT, yeah, Gunn Slate looks to want to be different than the MCU. I do not want a standardized tone, that a handcuff, that could be a great movie. Exactly, and I think this is what he's trying to avoid. As a director, I mean, he said when he was doing the Suicide Squad, he felt most superhero movies had become bland and generic. So clearly he was criticizing kind of the MCU in a way. I mean, if you ever say anything on Twitter about fake, he'll call you out about it. But then I think, in a way, in a quiet way, he was criticizing the MCU. I mean, not like the DCEU under Hamada or Johnson-Berg was any better, but I think James is not the kind of person people think he is. And I think he has got pride in what a film is. And I think, for example, the Suicide Squad has a very unique look to it. And also Peacemaker has a very unique look to it. Film Goblin, that's what I'm saying, that Snyder should go back to film school and learn that he needs to let the studio make the decisions and plan things out for him. Right. He's an auteur director. You can't learn that kind of thing in film school. I know, because I've been to film school. So you don't learn that in film school. Film school is about the techniques of being a director. And he doesn't need to go back to film school. And he's an auteur director. And what he needs, he does need to learn to collaborate with a studio more. But he doesn't want to do it. So he's now at Netflix, where they'll let him do whatever the fuck he wants. That's why he's at Netflix. He should never work for a studio again, because he can't do it. But he doesn't need to go back to film school. Whereas 007, Jake Gyllenhaal was second choice Batman Begins. Film Goblin, what if Rebel Moon sucks? When I see it, we'll have that discussion. I'm not going to talk about a film maybe sucking when we haven't even seen a trailer yet. That would be unfair, wouldn't it, Film Goblin? MSGT, that's like saying that Tim Burton, Edgar Wright, Christopher Nolan and Spielberg needs to just obey the studio. Yeah, it's something I don't agree with. So can't just obey the studio. What we're talking about is collaborating with the studio. And Snyder isn't willing to do that. And that's why he's at Netflix. And that's why he's happier now. That's why he will never be involved with DC again and WB again, because he can't work within the confines of a studio. He can't collaborate. That's the problem. It's his way or it's no way. That's Zack Snyder. That's what he wants to do. So that's what it is. There's no way you have to say, oh, you have to do everything the studio says, because your name is on the film. I mean, Zack Snyder, his name is on there as director on Justice League. And he didn't direct that film. He shot some of the scenes that they threw in it. But it's not Zack Snyder's movie. So that was disgusting. And he was going to demand his name be taken off the film. And then he decided not to. He should have done. And Joss Whedon quietly was in the background. And everyone blamed Zack Snyder for Justice League at first. What a mess. What a mess. But the mistake happened by Snyder being involved in the first place and Nolan being involved in the first place. These were not the people to run an interconnected franchise. In fact, people don't like Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon now, but believe you me, if they came at DC from the beginning, they could have planned something pretty special out. Whereas 007 directors and studio work more better. Depends on the director. Some directors don't want to compromise at all. And that's why they've got to remain in the independent scene. And, the general films need something else. Abraham Harry, you think the rumors of just talking shit and making fun of Zach on set were true? I don't know. I hope not. I'd like to think not. I mean, Zach said that Joss was there when he was there, and he was okay with it at first. I just don't know. It was a very, very messy situation. MSGT, I do agree with that. WB should have been able to recognise that with Nolan and Snyder and started their shared universe properly, like what Gunn is doing right now. Yeah, Gunn is more the person you want in this situation because he gets it. And he has a love for the comics generally. And not just subversive comics. That's the difference. Zach has always said he got into comics through the subversive stories. And people don't want their expectations subverted, not in this genre. Film Goblin, Netflix is tanking as a studio as well. Well, I don't know how they're doing or how they're not doing. Look, streaming is struggling as a whole. Streaming isn't the future. It's actually becoming a dead weight, and they're making a lot of interesting decisions. But I think that Netflix is doing better than most of them, so I don't know about that. But we're talking about Zack Snyder. We're not necessarily talking about how Netflix are doing in business, because business fluctuates. Business fortunes fluctuate. That's not what we're talking about here. That's not relevant. What's relevant here is what kind of director is Zack Snyder? He likes his own way. So that's why it's perfect for him to be at Netflix. And I'm sure Rebel Moon will be very successful for him. Where's 007? Joss was good for Superman film. I think Joss Whedon and Jeff Johns, if they came in 2011 together without Snyder and Nolan, they would have taken their time and made something very, very interesting. And I think it would have been successful because they are good creatives. And Joss Whedon was brought in to finish that Justice League movie. The fact, the actors didn't want him. The crew didn't want him because they wanted Zack. So they gave him as much of a hard time as he gave them. So there's no victims and aggressor here. They were all as bad as each other, but everyone has to pick a side. And then, folk tales and fables become reality. Right, we're going to be wrapping up the live video soon. Brian Branch, do you think it's time for them to make the Green Lantern's main core instead of a TV series? I mean, it's been a while since Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern came out. So they're doing the HBO Max show Lanterns. I think that's just a tie-in, a lead-in to the movie that they will announce in Chapter 1 later on. So I think you will get that. This is just a tie-in. Film Gobbling, I think Cavill and Gadot wanted Zack gone. No, I don't think that at all. Film Gobbling, possibly Affleck? No, not at all. Not at all. Considering in the end they were there that night saying release the Snyder Cut and hashtagging it, so I don't think so. Not Henry though, because you're not on Twitter. Film Gobbling, I just get a gut feeling. Maybe you had a curry or something. Yeah, we're going to wrap the live show up in a minute. Brian Branch, what do you think they're going to show for the Flash on Super Bowl trailer? Apparently a 2.5 minute trailer. So I think they will show a bit of everything. I don't think they'll give too much away in terms of spoilers, but I think we may see some of Michael Keaton as well finally. But I think it'll be an exciting trailer. Brian Branch, what do you... Abraham Herrera, Cavill and Gadot were cast by Snyder. Both of them owe their careers to Zack. They were struggling actors before Zack casted them. I don't think there's any question that Gal and Henry had anything but love for Zack. MSGT, it is well documented that everybody loves Snyder on set and was excited to be there for him with Zack Snyder's Justice League. Absolutely. Where's 007? Do you think Ben could direct Green Arrow film? No, I think he may direct the next Batman film, but I could be wrong. Maybe it is the Green Arrow film, but there's no Green Arrow film at the moment, but that could be announced in Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, Part 2. Who knows? And this is the great thing about James and Peter. Anything's possible as they announce more and more titles. That's what I think. They're not closed off. And I never understand why Zack thought it was a good idea in the third movie ever of the DCEU to introduce the Suicide Squad. I'll never understand that. I think it's weird. I think it really is weird. Because he had no connection to the story he was going to tell. Now, I know that we were going to see Steppenwolf a little bit in David Ayer's haircut. But, yeah, it wasn't really, that film wasn't, what was it? What was the point of that film? At that point, unless you're building up to a Suicide Squad versus the Justice League, there was actually no point in having a Suicide Squad movie as the third movie. I never really got that. Why's 007? Is Gal get recast? We don't know yet. I've got a gut feeling maybe she will be, but we'll see. Film Goblin, I don't know. It just seems like they were willing to trade Zack for Whedon at the time because of Avengers, and they didn't know how Whedon would treat them. Well, Gal and Henry didn't decide for Joss Whedon to come in. The studio did. So the studio were trading Zack for them. Not Henry and Gal. Henry and Gal weren't the CEOs of Warner Brothers. Why's that saying? Who your favourite Bond actor? Oh, Sir Roger Moore. Why's 007? What favourite Bond films? Oh, Live and Let Die. I love Live and Let Die. Moonraker. Casino Royale. MSGT. The studio wanted to trade for Whedon because they wanted him to make an Avengers Justice League movie that would make them $1 billion. They wanted $1 billion per movie since MOS, which is what businesses want. Waz 007, my favourite Bond is Roger Moore. Yeah, so Roger Moore, lovely man. The nicest guy ever to play James Bond, for sure. Right, everyone, a couple more comments and I'm going to wrap up. I'm getting a bit cold in this Weasley little shirt. Nice cup of tea, I think. Nice cup of tea, biscuit, cigarette. Sounds good to me. Then bed. It's about 25 to 12 here in Cyprus. Waz 007, my favourite, The Spy Who Loved Me and The Living Daylights. Two very good Bond movies, my friend, yes. Nobody does it better. Makes me feel sad for the rest. Nobody does it quite as good as me, baby. I'm the best. Changed a few words there, but you get the meaning. Hey, Herrera, Bond should be played by the guy who plays Loki. Oh, him. You see, he's very British. He looks cool. I suppose he'd be good. I mean, he's Loki now, isn't he? I think he's so Loki now, it'll be impossible for him to play anyone else. It's just typecast now. And he'll just come back for more Loki seasons, won't he now? So, yeah, never going to happen, I don't think. But who knows? I don't even think the next James Bond is going to be a white man, by the way. Let's see if I'm wrong. Waz 007 want Henry Cavill as Bond and Boris Johnson as bad guy. Waz 007 want Henry Cavill as Bond and Boris Johnson. All right. Film Goblin. WB desperately wanted to cancel Justice League after BVS came out, but couldn't. Well, when BVS came out, they were well into production of Justice League, and that's where the problem was. They wanted to back out of it, but they couldn't. They should have just let Snyder finish his thing. But they panicked, and that's the problem. Waz 007, Mick, I can see playing a Bond bad guy. Goodbye, Mr. Bond. I do not tolerate failure. Right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining tonight's live chat here on Movies TV Mad. Of course, this has been Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And we will see you again tomorrow with the DC Universe Daily. We'll be back live, same back place, same back channel. So until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, MSGT laters Mick, laters MSGT, and I'll feel the same. I will see you again. Had a great time gas bagging with you. We had lots of chats. Batman, Superman, DC. It's been really good. I'm glad to be back live again. We'll be doing more lives, and it's been great fun. Waz007, I enjoy your live stream. Thank you. I enjoy your company, Waz. I enjoy all your company. Thank you, Ronnie Dodge. Thank you, Abraham Herrera, and everybody else's name that's slipping out my senile dementia mind right now. Film Goblin, thank you very much. Nice chats with you. A bit of gas bagging, a bit of debates, which was a lot of fun. But I enjoy chatting with all of you. It's really great to interact with people who watch my videos and who are supporting the channel and who love the shit that I love. We're all passionate about this shit. We just have different opinions and different ways of loving this shit. And that's okay. I don't want people to be the same. We don't want an Adolf Hitler scenario where everyone's the same and thinks the same and everyone just agrees and nods their heads. Where's the fun in that? Anyway, I will see you tomorrow. Lots of stuff coming up tomorrow. And of course, I'll be back tomorrow night with the live. And the DC Universe Daily will be recorded as it always is. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. Thank you. Waz007, keep the good work. Thank you very much, Waz. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye for now. See you later.